Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to our latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday at 1 p.m. This program is broadcast from Rajamacon University of Technology, Pranakon. This program comes in two parts. The first part will introduce a song and discuss its main themes, what it's about. Then we will listen to the song and analyze the lyrics. We're going to look especially at any difficult words, difficult vocabulary, slang, idioms, anything that may be hard to understand. Then we'll break for the news and the latest updates from the university.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
This is your host for the show, Gary Gray, a native English speaker from America and an English teacher here at RMUTP in the Liberal Arts faculty. All right, on with the program, Musical Musings. Today's musical selection is Puff the Magic Dragon, sung by Peter, Paul, and Mary. It's possible you've heard this song, because I've actually heard this song on the radio here in Thailand. This is a great song because it seems so simple. It seems like it's just a simple story about a kid and his imaginary dragon friend. But it actually has a deeper meaning. As the song starts out, the boy is just having fun, playing with his imaginary dragon friend named Puff the Magic Dragon. But as we move on through the song, we see the boy disappear, and sadly the dragon is left alone. So what's the deeper meaning here? The song is all about growing up. Most of us, as adults, for example, don't walk around talking to our imaginary dragon friends, right? But lots of kids have imaginary friends. For example, there's a great comic in America called Calvin and Hobbes. It was probably the most popular comic from about the late 1980s to about 2000. Do you know what a comic is? I think a lot of you think about comics like Superman or Spider-Man or the Hulk or Iron Man. And when we talk about comics, we're talking about them in the books, not the movies. But not all comics are about superheroes. Some of them are just cute and funny. Calvin and Hobbes is a funny comic. Anyway, Calvin is a little kid. Hobbes is his stuffed animal toy. It's a tiger. Calvin always sees Hobbes as being alive. Hobbes is his best friend. In our song today, Puff isn't actually a stuffed animal. He's just completely imaginary, but it's the same idea. The boy in our song is named Jackie Paper. And just like Calvin and Hobbes, Jackie and Puff were best friends. This song is all about the fun Jackie and Puff had, but gradually Jackie grows up. And as he grows up, Jackie doesn't need his imaginary friend anymore. It's kind of a sad song, but kind of a silly song as well. It actually looks at the relationship between Jackie and Puff from Puff's point of view. It's sad because Puff gets left behind, all alone. So it's a sad song about loneliness. Poor Puff is all alone. But it's also a little bit silly in a way. I mean, is Puff really sad? He doesn't even actually exist. I think that's what makes this such a good song. It's about a serious topic, growing up and the changes in your life as that happens. But it's lighthearted and fun, because we look at the issue from the perspective of someone that's imaginary. So we don't have to take it too seriously. Even though it ends so sad and depressing, with Puff crying and walking away, we don't have to treat it too seriously. It's just a cute, fun song, but it does have a serious side to it. Okay, so the serious idea behind it, like I said, it's about the fact that we leave things behind as we grow up. And it can be sad. Think about your own life. There are things you loved when you were a kid, whether it was a favorite toy, a stuffed animal, a blanket, whatever. Or maybe there was actually a friend you had, like Puff, except a real friend, when you were a little kid. It's true for me. I remember my best friend when I was about 4 years old. I haven't seen him since then, but I still remember him. His name was David. And thanks to social media, we're actually still in contact with each other, but your host here is quite old. I didn't have social media for a long time, and so I had no contact with my best friend from childhood for many years. I also had a favorite toy, a stuffed animal mouse that I called Mousy, and my favorite blanket, which I called Blanky. So I think all of you out there have something similar. You had a best friend when you were a little kid, a best friend you don't see anymore. Or you had a favorite toy or blanket or something like that, and it's gone now. That's what this song is all about, losing those things from your childhood. But even though this idea is sad, it's not meant to be completely sad. The song is also about remembering the good parts. The first couple verses is all about the fun times that Jackie and Puff had. They played a lot. And a really fun and interesting thing about the way they played is that they used their imaginations a lot. Well, Puff was part of the imagination, so Jackie really used his imagination a lot. When we listen to the song, you'll hear about kings, princes, pirate ships. I think this is interesting because Puff himself is imaginary. So Jackie has a really wild imagination. All right, so let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back. Okay, in our first segment, we talked about the general meaning of this song. It's all about growing up. Jackie and Puff are best friends, but Puff is an imaginary and magic dragon. So when Jackie grows up, he leaves Puff behind. That's the basic idea behind today's song. So now let's look at the details and check out anything that's difficult to understand. This song is a bit weird because it begins with the chorus. The chorus is the part of the song that repeats itself. Most songs have a chorus. The chorus, which the song starts with, is Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Mostly this is pretty easy to understand, but there may be a few words that confuse you. Frolicked, for example. That's a weird word. What does that mean? It's actually a very easy word. It just means played. So when it says they frolicked in the autumn mist, they played. And what is autumn and mist? Autumn is the cool part of the year in northern areas that comes after summer. We don't really have that here in Thailand. It is always hot. Sometimes December, January, we get a few cool days, but that's about it. But if you go north, like into China or the United States, they have, after their summer, which is around June, July, August, they get a period of cool weather. Not so cold, just cool. They get a period of cool weather. That season is called autumn. All right, and when you get into that time of year, a lot of times you can get some wet weather with really light rain. That's called mist. So autumn mist. And the weird word Honolulu here, that's just the name of the place where Puff lives. Just the name of a place. Honolulu is where Puff lives. Okay, then we get into the first verse. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Again, pretty simple. just a few tricky words. Calling Puff a rascal is a word for someone who gets into a lot of trouble, but it's used like a little cute word. A rascal doesn't get into any real serious trouble, just a lot of small things that he probably shouldn't do. And then there's sealing wax. What is that? What's sealing wax? This is an old-fashioned thing. We mostly don't use it anymore. Sealing wax is wax, like what a candle is made out of, that you'd melt it and drip onto the fold of an envelope to keep it closed or sealed. So it's wax to seal something. Sealing wax. All right, we then hear the chorus again, twice actually, before we get to the second verse. Together they would travel on boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. All right, once more. Just a couple of tricky words. Billowed. What is a billowed sail? For a sail to be billowed, it means it's full of air. The sail, that's the part of the cloth on a sailboat that catches the air. So the sailboat is moving along well with lots of air in the sail. That's billowed. And to be perched on something usually means you're sitting on it. But we usually use that word to mean that you're sitting still and paying attention. So it's a good word to use since Jackie is keeping a lookout, which means he's watching for trouble. So he's sitting still and paying attention. Okay, then we get the next verse. Noble kings and princes would bow whene'er they came. Pirate ships would lower their flags when Puff roared out his name. This might be the easiest verse to understand so far. We get another one later that's quite easy. I'm not sure there are really any difficult words or phrases here. I don't know, maybe noble? That means classy and very high up in a country, like a king or a prince, like they mention here. To bow is when you bend over, like what you do when you meet a king. You bow to the king. So they're saying here that the kings and princes actually bow to Puff. Oh, and by the way, whene'er just means whenever. It's just shortened to make it fit into the song better. That's all. That's just whenever. Okay, we then get the chorus twice again, and the fourth verse. A dragon lives forever, but not so little boys. Painted wings and giant's rings make way for other toys. So here in the song, this is where we start to talk about Jackie growing up. When it says that little boys don't live forever, it does not mean that Jackie Paper actually dies. It just means that he's not a little boy forever. He grows up. But Puff, because he's imaginary, never ages. So it says a dragon lives forever. There's nothing else really confusing in this verse. Painted wings, giant's rings. Those sound a little weird, but they mean exactly what they say. They're just very strange items in Jackie's wild imagination. All right, the fifth verse is next. One gray night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff, that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. All right, I'm assuming you know what a roar is. It was mentioned earlier in the song, but I didn't explain it. It's the loud sound you can expect a dragon to make, kind of like a dinosaur would do. If you saw any of the Jurassic Park movies, you could imagine a dragon roar. And in this verse, it says he ceased his fearless roar. Cease means stopped. So, with his friend Jackie Paper gone, poor sad Puff doesn't roar anymore. All right, the sixth and seventh verse come next with no chorus break in between. The chorus will actually repeat at the end. The sixth verse continues the sadness of Puff. His head was bent in sorrow, green scales fell like rain. Puff no longer went to play along that cherry lane. All right, sorrow in this verse just means sadness. In English, your language skills sound poor if you repeat yourself too much. So they don't want to say his head was bent in sadness. They've already said Puff was sad a couple of times, and they'll do it again in the 7th verse. So they're just trying to change things up here. The scales are the rough part of a dragon. It's like what's on a fish. Those are called scales. Green scales fell like rain means that all of his scales are falling off of him. The rest of the verse is easy, except what is Cherry Lane? Honestly, that one's not even clear to me. Whether they mean the name of the road, is it called Cherry Lane, or a road lined with cherry trees, which are quite beautiful when they have their flowers on them. But regardless, it's where they went to play, because it says Puff no longer went to play along that cherry lane. So he no longer goes to the place where they played. All right, and we finally get the last verse. Without his lifelong friend, Puff could not be brave, so Puff, that magic dragon, sadly slipped into his cave. And it's a nice verse to end with because it might be the easiest one to understand. The only weird word here is how they use the word slipped. To slip usually means you've stepped on something like ice or a wet rock, something like that, which makes you lose your balance and you fall. That's slipping. But they're using the word differently here. Here, it's used to mean that he just quietly is going there into his cave. So you can imagine Puff's head is down, he's crying, and he slowly just walks into his cave. So he slips into his cave. And that's it. The song then repeats the chorus before ending. I think they repeat the chorus at the end to make it a little less sad. The chorus is actually pretty upbeat and happy, talking about where Puff is, and remember, he's frolicking and playing. In my opinion, they do this on purpose. Remember what we talked about in the first part of the show. This is a sad song, but it shouldn't be too sad. Puff isn't even real. He's only real to Jackie. The last 4 verses are all pretty sad, so they want to end the song with the more upbeat chorus. They also want it to be a little happy because for a lot of folks, this is actually viewed as a kid's song. You don't want a kid's song to be so depressing. So they end it with the happy chorus. And that's it. Now let's take a break, and then we'll get to the RMUTP news.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
That's all for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another song, and please subscribe to our channel.
Musical